my name's Desi Malinova. My role here now is lecturer. I began my journey at Queen's in January 2020 as a Patrick Johnson Fellow. I came here on a 3-year fellowship which included a postgraduate student to really uncover some of the B-cell functions, some of the B-cell processes that allow our immune system to begin responding to an immune challenge. Well, it's a pretty sensitive time in anybody's career, I think, that transition from being a postdoc for probably a number of years, perhaps several different postdocs, into independence. And so it's a decision that's not to be taken lightly, and you want to go somewhere for sure where you're going to be supported and where you're going to get a very, very good startup, or you're going to be able to hit the ground running as such. Now, Queen's offered at the time one of the most generous startups that I had seen across 3 or 4 different offers. It provided me with that student, it provided me with a fellowship academy around all the fellows that gave us a little bit more support and a little bit more early career guidance at that critical stage. And there's really evidence for how well that's worked, because we've seen, out of the 4 or 5 fellows that started alongside me in the same institute, all 5 have now been confirmed onto lecturers and so on, and 4 out of those 5 now have very large European or UKRI grants. So there's real evidence for how that support really does help us attract more funding and lead to proper established research labs. The support provided certainly gives reviewers of your grants a little bit more assurance that you are supported by the university, that you're supported by somebody here in terms of your career progression. So everything from the promised PhD student to the enhancement awards that they provide, those are added benefits that make you that little bit more successful, that make you that little bit more likely to succeed in the research that you are pursuing. On top of that, some of the more practical things, some of the close links with research and enterprise, for example, some of the funding sessions, some of the PhD student supervision sessions and so on, really give us practical day-to-day skills on how to handle different challenges of that first independent job. Some of the ones I remember most are the funding liaison type ones, where I think we had a welcome and an MRC representative come in, and we've had some of the funders come in and give us a chat and tell us a little bit more about their remit and where we fit and how we can be a little bit more competitive for their rounds of funding. Other ones have been around networking, so there was also a very, very good opportunity to work together with colleagues in the south, I believe Trinity and UCD and a few of the universities across the island of Ireland, around peer networking, peer mentoring, and to really engage with others at a similar stage or slightly higher to understand and guide us through some of those challenges. That was really helpful as well. So my very first day here at Queen's was the Fellowship Academy opening event I remember this well, on the 13th of January back in 2020. And that was a fantastic opportunity to meet many other fellows and just understand the scope of what the Fellowship Academy is trying to achieve, to understand just how many of us there are and how varied in terms of different research profiles. Since then, we have had a number of networking lunches, a number of training events and so on, where we can always meet with our peers, discuss even scientific ideas. For me, it's been most beneficial to see the variety of different work going on within the Fellowship Academy and meeting all the different fellows and understanding what it is they do, how it is they've got here and where they're headed. We would normally only see that within an institute, within a school where we maybe have internal seminars, but to understand that more broadly, to see what people are doing outside of that, to see what they're doing across the university, has been really, really critical for starting some collaborations. And there are already a number of examples of collaborations started within the Fellowship Academy. We currently have a collaboration with someone from biological sciences that would maybe never have happened. We met on that very first day at the Fellowship Academy event. And there are collaborations across different themes as well, but I think just bringing us together, one of the most fantastic discussions was around, it was a day where we were split off into groups and we were each working on particular challenges around environment and sustainability and so on. Now, the actual topic was not so critical. That was not going to be the collaboration that we're forging, but bringing us together and facilitating those conversations between different fellows to get started, to think about where we could go forward. That was critical. So I think we can't underestimate the power that just bringing us together into one room has. What I hope to be doing, I think that's a really tricky one, because I think at this stage, many of us don't necessarily think these are my next checkboxes and this is where I'm going. I suppose my immediate questions are, what does happen in that B cell when it's presenting antigen to the immune system? What are those first papers going to be out of the lab? Those first challenges. I guess One of the things I'd like to develop a little bit more is a more translational angle and a little bit more of collaboration with clinicians, which we have the opportunity to do. I know that's very subject specific in terms of we're immunologists and we have the scope for that. That may not apply to all fellows, but certainly develop those clinical links so that we can see a little bit more translation in our science in 10, 15 years' time. Are we able to modulate some of the B cell processes that we're seeing, some of the immune cell processes that we're seeing in autoimmunity, for example? So that would be a longer term aim, of course, with a few more successes of external funding. Some of the future events we could try to focus on, in addition to facilitating conversations with the fellows, of course, facilitating conversations more widely, externally with different stakeholders. So be it with clinical colleagues, be it with colleagues around commercialization of some of the research, be it with patient and public involvement groups. I think all of these would be really useful in strengthening the power of our research. Commercialization does seem to be a really clear output, a really clear structure to work towards when you have a product or something in the pipeline that can really affect immune responses in our example. I feel like our research is probably leaning a little bit closer to basic science, so we're probably a little way off, but certainly in future. I guess my thinking is always that real evidence that we have, that real evidence that it's helped the fellows to move forward, to get their permanent positions, whether here at Queen's, whether externally, because there has been a lot of funding success within the Fellowship Academy. So to me, that just speaks to how much support there is for the fellows. Some examples include even the internal peer review. We mentioned the research and enterprise, but in addition to that, we have internal peer review at centre level, where a group of very senior, experienced academics will sit down with you and go through your grant in a very critical but a very fair manner and be able to guide you, and that's not something I've seen happen in very many places, so to me that's quite unique and just really evidences that we do support that transition into independence.